Welcome to the Maria Heller Show, the Internet's original podcast. Since the year 2000, always ahead of the curve, always on your side. A true warrior for truth and justice, Maria and her guests leave nothing out, and no one is off limits. There is only one truth, the rest is lies. Sit back, enjoy the education with a true daughter of Mother Earth. Sharp New York wit, spiritual knowing, and a very dry sense of humor, Maria will dissect the news and lies to make it all palatable. Education is power. Maria delivers rapid-fire truth like no one else can. Here she is, the mouth that roars, the legendary Meria Heller. Good morning, world. Maria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to The Bigger Picture. And man, if we ever needed a time for the bigger picture, I would say 2017 is the time, with my excellent co-host, Michael Reccia, who is, his work is beyond wonderful. And you can check out his work at josephspeaks.com. I have a link here. I recommend every single book. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Maria. How are you?
I'm good. You know, I was on a news show in the UK yesterday for 2 hours, and I mentioned your work and gave out your website, and we talked a little bit about, you know, spirituality too, trying to figure out what's happening on this planet.
That's great. Thank you.
No, it was my pleasure, and I also want to let people know that you now have a Facebook page. Is it under Joseph Communications?
It is, yes.
Okay, so everybody can get over and join that page. Michael puts a great meme up every day, and on we go. So I know that I know you just started working on a new book.
Yes. After a 2-year recovery period, I suppose you could say, but there was an urgency to bring through a 7th book, and so we sat on Saturday morning. We sit once a month. And I was hoping that things would be as they had been, that I could reconnect with Joseph. Unfortunately, I can. But he's got a new suit, Maria.
He's got a new...
I used to see him in rather dowdy-looking clothes. They would either be, browns or something muted like that. But I saw him in yellow. I mean, I saw him for about a week before he reconnected with me. And there he is in this yellow jacket, very snazzy-looking, very futuristic.
Wow, very interesting.
Sorry?
That's very interesting, because yellow is, you know, supposedly the color of high intellect.
Yes, and I was associated with change as well. And it was a good connection. It was a great relief to know that we can still make that connection, because there's still a lot to say.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. There's more to say today than ever before, I'm sure. Well, you know, yellow is also the color that a lot of people suggest you paint your baby's room in for mental stimulation. So I'm not too surprised that he's upped his game, as we call it.
Yes.
Well, you know, my thing is always the same. My question is always the same. How much time, what have we done to the space-time continuum for human beings on this planet, looking at what's happening planet-wide right now?
Well, no information on that from Joseph. What we had was an introduction to what he's going to talk about. And I think I've mentioned before that the book is called The Spaces, or will be called The Spaces Between. And it's Joseph's intention to lift the corners, as he says, of the room, and let you discover what's really going on with you spiritually, and what you are creating and projecting into this world, and how to combat that, and how to bring light into that to change things. Mm-hmm. I know you feel it's a very dark period, and I was thinking about this because we emailed each other a few days ago. I was thinking about what you said about the current state of things. And the problem we've got as spirits is that we're looking through the wrong end of the telescope. We look at politics and wish to change politics by more politics, or by more physical actions, and by more words and more arguments. But we have to realize that the political landscape that we see around the world has been created first by our thoughts as spiritual beings. by our perception of the world and our expectations of the world, and by the way that we buy into the negative aspects of the field of human consciousness that Joseph was referring to. And so, what is happening politically, we have to tackle change from within, because the change that brought us to this point started from within.
Right.
We have to go within, and we have to change our view of how we want the world to be. There's no other way. We will never tackle it physically. We might put a Band-Aid on it. We might have wars, we might have skirmishes, we might have violence, and we think that we've arrived at peace. But we haven't. We really haven't. Because peace only comes when we change this world back to the planet it was supposed to be. And when we change ourselves back to what we truly are by remembering what we truly are. So we might be upset at the way things are at the moment, but it's up to us, and it's in our hands and in our power to change things. And we change things by daily going within for a quiet period, by ignoring what we think is happening in the world, and pouring out into the world through light, through God light, the world that we want to see. A peaceful world. A world where we get on with each other. A world where there's enough for each other. And these are not just words. These are things that are attainable. But they're only attainable if we do something. And my goodness, the time to do something is now.
Oh, absolutely. No argument out of me on that one, for sure. But here's the other thing. How many people does it take to hold that vision? The majority of the planet seems to be insane right now. So it's like, how many people do we need to visualize a better world for it to actually stick?
We always say that, or Joseph always says that one soul working for the light counters thousands of souls who are not working for the light, who are negative in their approach. The light, because it is what we are, it is an expression of God, is all powerful. And it is an analogy that you see every night when you go into your home from a dark street. You put the light on and you chase away the darkness. The darkness disappears. And so we have to hold true to that vision of a better world. And we know in past conversations that we've talked about before. We've talked about the experiment that went wrong many aeons ago that led to the world that we see at the moment. But even if that experiment once again leads to cataclysm, our job should be to illuminate in the meantime and get out as many souls as we can. So no working for the light, no time spent working for the light is ever wasted. It's ever wasted. It elevates the person who is sending out the light, and it elevates souls across the planet, and specifically souls who are ready to receive that light and to move on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure you must have noticed that there seemed to be an extraordinary amount of people that died towards the end of last year.
Yes.
Are souls choosing to just leave the planet now more than before?
We've lost an awful lot of celebrities across the world. A lot of people that we grew up with have disappeared. Mm-hmm. We won't know the answer to that until we're back there ourselves as to whether these people have decided that this is the last time for them. Mm. I hope it is the last time for them.
Right.
We will miss them,
right.
But I hope that they have decided that this has been their final incarnation and that they are now moving on through the spiritual spheres that lead to infinity and to greater bliss. Because as we've said many times before, Maria, we don't need to come back here.
Right.
We come back here from our own volition. And because we hadn't investigated our spirituality. Mm-hmm. And so in many cases, souls leave this earth not believing in an afterlife, not having examined any true spiritual values, and when faced with the choice through free will of moving on into the spiritual spheres, or coming back to something that they are familiar with, right. No matter how nasty or negative that thing may be, that's the only choice they've made for themselves.
Right.
This is what is known. The spiritual side is unknown. Therefore, I choose to come back.
Right.
But unfortunately, if you choose to come back, you're choosing to come back to suffer.
Right.
You're choosing to come back to contribute through negativity to the world as it is at the moment. Far better to say, look, there's a light over there. Look, there's a beautiful landscape over there. I'm going to move into it. It may be unknown, but it's far better than what I've left behind.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I must say to myself, never come back about 100 times a day. So I'm getting that through to my subconscious one way or the other. But aren't there people here that didn't come here for those reasons, but volunteered to come here just to teach or to lead?
Yes, indeed. Yes. There are people who have, and imagine the sacrifice, that have come here specifically to illuminate us. Not to dictate to us, but to bring through a way of life and a remembrance of who we are that puts us in touch with that which is lost in most people for the time being. So yes, there are two types of souls. There are those that want to come back for another ride, for another experience, and there are those who are trying their utmost to be a light in the darkness and teach other people how to be a light in the darkness, so that we remember our spiritual home, our spiritual core. We seem to have become so dislocated from what we really are. I wonder how many souls across the world daily spare a thought for life, for the wonder of existence, and for where they are possibly going. We're all in the same boat. We're all moving in the same direction. It frightens me that so many souls move, travel, journey from life to death without giving any thought to what comes next, and to any thought to if there is anything next.
Right.
And spending time investigating if there's anything next, and deciding for themselves with the spiritual information that's available. I find it extraordinary that we're so tied into this life that we don't consider that there is another life, a greater life, and we don't consider that there is that there's something more than the societal life that we plug ourselves into daily.
Right.
We're chasing the dollar, we're chasing leisure, we're chasing enjoyment, but we don't chase spirituality. And I'm not talking about religion.
Right.
I'm talking about what we really are and investigating that. We've got to do that, surely.
Oh, for sure. Listen, I was always that way. I've been accused most of my life of pondering things way too much. But when I was a child and I learned how long turtles live, how long trees live, it just didn't connect in my brain that why would turtles and trees live longer than us when, humans live to be 70 or 80 years old? But that was me. I've always questioned everything and my mind goes into very strange places. But most of them are much more pleasant places than this one, I will say that.
Yes, indeed.
And, like I always say, if I volunteered to come down here, when I'm back where I need to be, I'm going to kick my own ass for coming down here. If such a thing is possible, I'm going to give myself a good beating.
All things are possible, Maria.
Well, then I'm going to give myself a good ass kicking and say, never do that again. What were you thinking? Michael, I have a question for you from one of your fans, and one of mine, of course. He's reading most of your books, he says. Right now, he's not reading them in order. He's reading Illumination right now. And he has a question, and it's a little deep, but I can understand why he's asking the question, because it's a question a lot of people ask. He said, I thought about how the soul spirit isn't harmed by the often horrific experiences people go through in their lives. But then he watched a documentary about a woman who was held in captive for 18 years, raped, and had kids from the rape. And he's saying, if this is the case, how could this really be? He says, how could she go through that and commit murder and get murdered with the soul not being harmed? But he says, how many times do you have to experience those experiences? When is it not enough? Or when is it enough? When have you done with that experience?
Right. enough when you decide it's enough. That sounds a very glib answer, but it ties in with the theme of what we've just been talking about. Don't come back. When we reincarnate, when we've decided to reincarnate, we inevitably draw around us the circumstances, the unfinished business of our past lives. Not the personality bit, but the dominant vibrations, the dominant themes in our lives. And if they inevitably draw towards us from the field because they are stored as a kind of magnetic history on a physical level. So as we come back here, automatically we start to pull towards us more of what has happened to us before. And we find ourselves in the same karmic loops, going through the same thing again and again and again. Now, Joseph says that karma only applies here once we've got back into the field. So the way to negate karma is to say, I'm not coming here anymore. Enough is enough. And also we can do that whilst we're still physically here. I'm not talking about somebody who's in prison or can't get out of a situation immediately. Mm-hmm. But once we decide that enough is enough, we reject those vibrations from past lives. We reject those vibrations that have held us for so long, and we begin to loosen them. So that eventually, and sometimes sooner rather than later, we escape from them whilst we are still in this life. Mm-hmm. Now, it seems terrible, doesn't it, that souls have to come here and suffer in this way. Right. And there's another sort of link to this, in that a lot of people then say, why does God allow it? Or even worse, why does God make it happen? Well, first of all, he doesn't make it happen. We do. We've got onto this broken merry-go-round again, and it's been our own choice. Mm-hmm. He allows it to happen because there is a universal constant, and that universal constant is free will. Right. We are God's children. We've been sent out to experience. We've been sent out to do whatever we want to do. To stop us doing that stops us being individuals, stops us being individual expressions of God. And so we have free will. We can turn right, we can turn left at any time. The problem is we turn repeatedly to the negativity of this world that we created at the time of the fall. So spiritual information is power, because spiritual information frees us from the type of lives that we have perhaps had to this time, and we believe to be the only options open to us. They're not. The power lies with us, but it's a matter of investigation and realization that what we're talking about is correct by putting into practice some of the spiritual techniques that we've been given, and by sending out light not only to others, but to ourselves. Right. By changing ourselves through light and moving away from the negativity.
Exactly. I totally understand what you're saying, because just this past week, 3 of my Reiki students contacted me because of ailments and things they're going through. And I said to them, well, but are you Reikiing yourself? And, oh, I forgot. Or, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Or, this and that. And I think we all tend to forget what we know to be true and what works for us, because we get tripped up by the matrix around us.
Yes, and sometimes we feel, don't we, that we're not deserving of giving ourselves light. We can give it out to everyone else, mm-hmm. but not to ourselves. But we strengthen ourselves through light. We make clearer contact with our spiritual memories through light. And of course we're deserving. Every person is deserving. As one of God's children, each of us is equally deserving, no matter what the outward appearance is. Right. So it's important that we spend time giving ourselves light. And as you said, Maria, in giving yourself light, you can heal yourself. Mm-hmm. You can spend that quality time rearranging the pattern of your body so that you get rid of the negative tendencies that might be causing you illness. You can bathe the affected areas of your body that are causing problems with light and see them change. It's happened time and again. I'm sure you've seen it happen, and it's happened with yourself time and again.
Oh, yeah.
We can put ourselves right. We can put ourselves right spiritually. And we can put ourselves right physically too. So it's a great benefit to us to, again, spend some time in the quiet, opting out of the world each day, and tuning in to what we really are to boost ourselves, to recreate ourselves, and to give ourselves the strength to do what is necessary.
Exactly. I wanted to add a little to the earlier question I gave you, because I think you pretty much answered it. When is it enough? When you decide it's enough. But he also had said these things can't be random. Do they happen for reasons we can't see? So my sense is he's asking if other people or other spirits create that karma or those lessons for us when we come down here. What would be the reason for it?
Well, we're one organism. This is something else that that unfortunately, as an effect of the fall, we've forgotten. We are all linked. We are all part of the same thing because we all come from the same thing. And so there are patterns that dance around us whilst we're here. Oftentimes we are reincarnated with people that we have known before, with spirits that we have known before. And because certain spirits are going through similar circumstances to us in what they're learning, we gravitate towards them and they towards us. So, yeah, the people around us are teaching us something, and we are teaching ourselves something. Not only that, but we are also teachers. We are teaching the people around us something. It's this interplay all the while of pupil and teacher. And no experience is wasted, and no connection with anyone is wasted if we look for the right signs. Nothing is done in isolation. You can't do anything in isolation. You're not an isolated being.
Right.
And if we realize this, we would also begin to realize our power for change that we have within. So, we've got people around us that are teaching us things, but we are also contributing to their view of the world, and we are teaching them things. And the whole experience is teaching everyone something, if we would only observe the lesson and acknowledge it.
Right. Right. Well, another thing that he talked about, I don't believe you and I have ever talked about it. He said that he watched a documentary about a woman who believed that she was abducted by aliens and being experimented on.
Right.
Do those things really exist? And why would somebody pick that for something to experience?
Yes, it's a strange one, isn't it?
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
sometimes that the physical mind tries to rationalize spiritual experience in terms that it, on a physical level, understands. My take on aliens, or Joseph's take on aliens and mine, is that we are in a kind of quarantine. He says, of course aliens exist, in that beings exist and go through experience on other planets. Of course, the universe is teeming with life. It's not teeming with anything else, because the planets are alive, the stars are alive, space is alive, as everything issues from the angelic host and everything issues from God. But he says that because of the fall, we've got the equivalent of a keep out sign around the planet. In other words, yes, you can visit here, but it's not advised. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of our visitors that we would potentially have from other planets do keep away until we've sorted ourselves out. But I do think that a lot of the experiences are sometimes, as I say, the physical mind trying to make sense of something spiritual. I don't see why other beings would be like us in their intent. As Joseph says, the rest of the universe isn't negative in the way that we are. We project onto our vision of what other life might be like concepts that are based on how we behave. And I cannot see any reason why other beings would abduct us and be violent towards us. I'd far rather see other beings educating us spiritually. But at the moment, that's not taking place. There's more of an observation taking place than an interaction.
Well, years ago I interviewed this woman. I believe her name was Mary Rodwell. and she had an organization, I believe, out of Australia, for
Yeah.
people that had nothing but positive experiences with what would be called alien abductions.
Yes.
So could it be the person's mental state or emotional spiritual state that sees them either as positive or negative?
Yes, we also have to understand the power of our spiritual mind. We are capable, quite literally, of conjuring up that which we believe to be true. That's the way we operate. That's the way that we originally created the planets.
Right.
By deciding that we wanted things to be in a certain way so that we could move through the journey of being born here and living here and going back to the spirit worlds from here. We decided that that was what we wanted to do, so we created it. Now, we're still at heart, and that's a very important phrase, at heart, spiritual beings. We still have that power to conjure up anything that we believe to be true in the measure that we believe in it.
Well, it's
and
kind
so
of
most of us are
right.
sort of. Sorry?
I think it's kind of like how we assume what someone is thinking without actually asking them what they're actually thinking.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about your last book, From Here to Infinity, where
Yes.
you talk about life on this planet as a film, a movie, and that
Yes.
we can alter the movie, and that sometimes we're the main star, and we have a lot of co-stars, and some people that are just crowds in our film. And I think that's a really good way to look at what we experience on this planet as, not to sound corny, we're all players on the same stage.
Absolutely. Shakespeare was exactly right in that. And if we realize that, we can alter the script. If we're both the star and the scriptwriter, which we are, we can alter the script. Our problem is, after being conditioned for years and years and years to think that the world will only go worse, to think that things will only get more negative, we bought into that. And so we don't value the power of our own creative abilities. What we have to understand is that our creative abilities work equally well either negatively or positively.
Right.
So it is not believing in our positive power. We are pouring out negative creativity. We're maintaining the world in its negative state. We have to turn that switch from negative to positive and say, today my thoughts, my creative thoughts from my spiritual heart are going to make a real spiritual difference to my life, to the life of the people around me, and to the planet. And in the measure that we believe in that, our light that we send out has varying degrees of power. We have to understand that no thought that we think creatively lies dormant. It goes out there and it forms either negatively or positively. It's up to us to decide which of those two sides of the coin we link to.
Right. Well, I think that there's a conflict in how a lot of people feel about the light. And I will blame it directly on, the so-called New Age movement. Because a lot of New Age teaching through the decades were that you had no light. You had to meditate and bring the light into you. But from what I read in Joseph's communications, you are the light, and you just need to send the light out.
Absolutely. The light is you. It is what you are at core. It is what you are made of. It is your expression. You are a being of absolute, beautiful, wonderful light. You are a highly creative angel. And it is your purpose in life, and I'm not talking about this life, I'm talking about the greater life, to create ever increasingly beautiful situations for you and your fellow angels to move through and experience, so that you can take those increasingly beautiful experiences, the result of having moved through them, back to the Godhead. That's what you do as a child of God. That's what you really are. And if there are people this evening who are listening to this who are depressed, who are down, don't be. Because once you sweep away that film script that we've been talking about, at the heart of you lies a wonderful angelic being, a being of love, a being of creativity, a being of supreme light. That's what you really are. It doesn't matter what's going on outside and around yourself at this time. Those are illusions. You will get through them and past them. At your heart, you are a wonderful, wonderful child of God. Be uplifted in that. And in being uplifted in that, you lift up others too.
Absolutely. Very well said. Michael, we're going to go to a short break. Everybody stay with us. I have lots more coming up with Michael, so stay tuned. Hi, this is Maria Heller. If you're enjoying this show, please consider listening to the rest of it, along with hundreds of other hours of education, by a small subscription on my site. Get over to meria.net, meria.net. You are the only thing that supports this show. There's no corporate control, and there's plenty of education on site. So please consider either a subscription or a donation to keep the work going. There are too many alternative voices out there that are being silenced because of lack of support. So if you don't want MSM to be the only mind-controlling news out there, please consider supporting the people that support you and help us all save something for the future for our children. Thank you so much.